I still remember the sound of that knock. Honey, soft, polite, but wrong. Like a hand that already knew what waited inside. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon, the kind that drapes the whole countryside in silver mist and silence. The old house was quiet. Too quiet. Except for the tick of that grandfather clock in the parlor and the faint hum of the refrigerator down the hall. I was sitting by the window, quilt half finished on my lap, when that knock came. 3 times. Slow, certain. And Lord have mercy. When I opened that door, there she was, a woman I'd never seen before, standing on my porch, in a long beige coat, her hair slick with rain, her eyes pale as glass. She looked young, maybe mid-30s, but there was something about her, something old, like she'd lived 1,000 lives, and carried every one of them in those cold, still eyes. "Good afternoon, ma'am," she said, her voice calm. Too calm. "I believe you're Mrs. Ruth Whittaker." I nodded, polite but guarded. "That's right, sweetheart. Can I help you?" She smiled then, faint and practiced. "Oh, you already have. I'm just here for something that belongs to me." Before I could even ask what that meant, she said the words that near stopped my heart. 14, 39, 72, and just like that, my knees went weak. Because those weren't just numbers. That was the code to our family safe. I didn't let her see me flinch, not fully. I held the door frame, pressed my lips tight. "I think you've got the wrong house, darling." But she just tilted her head, raindrops sliding down her face like tears. "No, Mrs. Whittaker. I think you know exactly who I am." The wind picked up then, whipping through the pines behind her. A storm was coming. I could smell it, that thick metallic scent that rolls in before the sky breaks open. "Maybe you should come in," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Lord knows why I said it. Habit, maybe, or that old Southern politeness drilled into me by my mama. But deep down, something colder whispered, "You just invited the past inside." She stepped through the door like she'd done it before, not as a stranger, but as someone coming home. She took her coat, off slow, eyes wandering around the room, lingering on every picture frame, every antique, every little piece of my life. "Pretty place," she murmured. "Smells like cinnamon and ghosts." "Well, honey," I said, trying to keep it light, "that's just my baking and bad memories." She smiled again, not kindly, but knowingly. "You kept the house just like he left it." My chest went tight. "He?" I asked. But I already knew who she meant. "Henry," she said softly. "Your husband." That name hadn't been spoken in this house for 20 years. Not since the night the sheriff came to tell me he was gone. Found dead on the edge of Coal Creek Road, his car wrapped around a tree. They said it was an accident. I never believed them. "How do you know Henry?" I whispered. She looked straight into my eyes. "Because he's my father." My world tilted right then, sweetheart. I gripped the edge of the table just to stay upright. "Now before I go any further, my dear, if this story has touched your heart even a little already, don't forget to stay with me till the end. You'll want to hear how this one turns." I stared at her, searching her face for some piece of truth, but all I found was the reflection of my own confusion. "That's impossible," I said, shaking my head. "Henry and I never had children." She walked closer, her boots leaving little wet prints on my hardwood floor. "Maybe not the way you think." And with that, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out something small and folded. When she handed it to me, my heart near stopped again. It was a photograph, yellowed at the edges, of Henry standing in front of that old lake house we used to visit in Tennessee, with a little girl on his shoulders. And Lord, the girl looks just like her. I sank into the armchair by the fire, photo trembling in my hand. Where did you get this? From my mother, she said. Before she died, she told me I'd find the rest of my story here. Her eyes glistened, but not with tears, with intent. She said there's a box inside your safe that belongs to me. Now, honey, you might think an old woman like me would slam the door right there, call the police, or tell her to get the hell off my porch. But no. Something in her voice, in her eyes. It felt familiar, like echoes of a ghost I used to love. Still, I wasn't about to hand over a damn thing. You must be mistaken, I said softly. That safe's been locked since Henry passed. She stepped closer, her shadow stretching across the rug. And yet you still remember the code. For a long time we just stood there. Her, cold and certain, me, trembling but holding my ground. The rain outside grew heavier, thunder rolling like drums of war. I finally said, even if what you're saying is true, you can't just waltz in here and demand something that ain't yours. She smiled again. That faint, eerie smile. Mrs. Whitaker, I'm not asking. Then she did something that chilled me to my bones. She looked right past me, toward the old portrait hanging over the mantel, the one of me and Henry on our wedding day, and she whispered, almost to herself, he told me about the safe. He said if I ever got lost, you'd help me find the truth. Her words landed like thunder, because Henry had said something just like that once. Years before he died, we'd been sitting on the porch, drinking sweet tea, and watching the sunset, and he'd said, if I ever don't make it home one day, Ruth, someone will come looking for what I left behind. When she does, you'll know. I'd laughed it off back then, thinking it was one of his strange moods. But now I wasn't laughing. The storm had swallowed the whole sky by the eye. Time I found my voice again. The lamps flickered, that old house creaking, like it was listening to every word. I walked over to the fireplace, tossed another log on, and said, you want the truth, sweetheart. The truth buried more people in this family than any secret ever could. She didn't flinch. Then maybe it's time someone dug it up. There was something in her tone that reminded me of myself at her age. That dangerous mix of anger and hope. The kind that drives a person to places they can't come back from. I sighed, sitting back down. You say you're Henry's daughter. Then tell me something only he'd know. She didn't even pause. You call him Hank only when you're mad. He used to leave little notes in your recipe box. Love notes, folded up inside the sugar jar, so you'd find. When you baked pies, my throat closed. No one knew that. Where's your mama now? I asked softly. Gone, she said, eyes hardening. Cancer took her 3 winters ago. But before she passed, she said something that didn't make sense. She said Henry didn't die by accident, that he was run off the road. I felt the room tilt again, my chest heaving. What are you talking about? She said he found something he wasn't supposed to, something that could ruin people. And she said that whatever he found, he hid it here. My heart was pounding now, because I knew she was telling the truth. See? I never told a soul, darling, but the night before Henry's accident, he'd come home late, pale, shaken, eyes wild. He told me not to ask questions, just to lock the safe and never open it again. He kissed me on the forehead and said, if anyone ever comes asking, tell 'em you don't know nothing. Promise me, Ruth. And I did. I promised, but that was 20 years ago. And now the past had come knocking, wearing a raincoat and my husband's eyes. I rose from the chair, slow and heavy, my knees popping. Come with me, I said. We walked down the hall, the long one lined with family photos, all those frozen smiles from decades gone by. I could feel her behind me, her footsteps soft but sure, like she already knew the way. At the end of the hall was the study. Old oak shelves, dust thick as velvet, and in the corner, the safe, black iron built into the wall, hidden behind a framed photo of Henry fishing by the lake. I set the frame aside. My hand trembled as I touched the dial. 14, 39, 72. The tumblers clicked, and for the first time in 20 years, that door swung open with a long, tired groan. Inside was a single wooden box, small enough to fit in my lap, tied with a faded red ribbon. Henry's handwriting was scrawled across the top, for Ruth. Only if she asked why. I turned to her. This box ain't just yours or mine. It's both of ours now. Whatever's inside. We open it together. She nodded, barely breathing. I untied the ribbon, lifted the lid, and inside was a stack of letters, old photographs, and one cassette tape with Henry's voice labeled for my girls. My girls. I looked at her, tears spilling down my cheeks. Maybe he did mean you after all. She smiled, this time softer. Play it, she whispered. So I did. The tape crackled. That warm, scratchy hum of old recordings. Then Henry's voice filled the room. Older, shakier, but unmistakable. My sweet Ruth, he began. If you're hearing this, then I reckon I didn't make it home. And if she's there with you, my little Anna, then the truth has found its way at last. The rest of the tape was static. We both froze. Anna, that was my mother's name, and Henry's ex-fiancé before he met me. Lord have mercy. The girl wasn't claiming to be our child. She was my husband's daughter from the woman I replaced. The thunder rolled again, and that old house seemed to sigh. I turned off the recorder, my hand covering my heart. What do you want from me, sweetheart? I asked. She looked at me with eyes full of pain and something else. Pity. Not your money, not revenge, just the truth. My mother spent her whole life thinking he left her for nothing. I just need to know if he ever loved her. And there it was. The thing I'd buried deeper than the safe itself. Yes, I said, quietly. He did. But he loved me too. Maybe that was his curse. He couldn't stop loving what he shouldn't. She nodded, tears slipping down her face. Then maybe we both deserved to hear that. We sat there in silence. 2 generations of broken hearts, listening to the storm beat against the windows. And somewhere deep inside, I could almost hear Henry's voice again. Soft, full of regret. If she ever comes looking, tell her the truth, Ruth. Tell her I never stopped loving her. Now, my dear, before we go any further, if this story has stirred something inside you, do subscribe and stay with me through the end. This tale's just beginning, and what comes next will shake this old house to its foundations. The tape clicked to a stop, but the silence it left behind was louder than thunder. I sat there, holding that recorder, like it might come alive again if I just prayed hard enough. Anna, she hadn't moved an inch. Her eyes were locked on the box, on that ribbon now wilted and damp from our tears. Play it again, she whispered. I did, but it ended the same way. Henry's voice cut clean off, replaced by that hissing static, like the universe itself didn't want us to hear what came next. And for a moment, I swear I smelled his cologne, cedarwood, and rain hanging in the air, that old scent that used to linger on his shirts long after he'd gone. My dear, have you ever missed someone so much your body remembers them before your mind does? That's what it felt like grief walking back into the room in boots. Anna leaned forward, her fingers brushing the edge of the box. There has to be more, she said, her voice sharper now. He wouldn't leave it like that. I sighed. Honey, sometimes the dead don't get to finish what they start. She shot me a look that near broke my heart. Not angry, just desperate. Then maybe we finish it for him. She started rummaging through the letters, her hands shaken. There must have been 20 or so, all addressed to me. Ruth Whitaker scrawled in Henry's messy handwriting, but one envelope stood out. It wasn't addressed to me at all. It said, in the same hand, "For Anna, when she's ready, Lord, have mercy," I whispered. He did know. Anna reached for it, hesitating. Her eyes flicked up to mine, that mix of fear and hope. Like a child about to open a door she's been told not to. "Go on," I said softly. "You came all this way." She slid her finger under the flap, pulled out a folded sheet, yellowed with age. Her lips moved as she read, then her breath caught. And I saw her crumble, right there in front of me. "What is it, sweetheart?" I asked. Standing up slow, she handed me the letter with trembling fingers. I unfolded it and read aloud, my voice barely holding steady. "My dearest Anna, if you're reading this, then I reckon the storm I feared finally came for me. You didn't deserve the lies your mama and I lived. I loved her, yes. But I loved Ruth too. And love like that don't split clean. It breaks a man right down the middle. There's something inside that safe that could clear my name, proof of who really wanted me gone. But if Ruth's still alive when you find this, trust her. She's got more truth in her heart than any of the men who buried mine." My voice cracked on the last line. I looked at Anna, and she was crying silent tears. The kind that don't fall so much as surrender. We sat quiet a while. The only sound that storm and the faint ticking of the clock. Then she said, "Who wanted him gone, Ruth? What was he talking about?" I closed my eyes, because I'd asked myself that question every day for 20 years. And every time, the answer felt closer than I wanted it to be. "Henry worked for a man named Charles Duval," I began. "Owned half the land round these parts back then. Banks, mills, even the church, I swear. Henry was his bookkeeper, but he wasn't blind. He started seeing things in those ledgers that didn't add up." Anna frowned. Money, and power," I said softly. "You don't cross a man like Charles Duval unless you're ready to dig your own grave." Anna leaned back in her chair, staring into the fire. "So you think Duval had him killed?" I hesitated. "I think Henry found something he shouldn't have, and I think the night he died, he wasn't drunk like the sheriff said. He was running." Her jaw clenched. "Running from who?" I looked at her. "Maybe the same folks who've been watching this house all these years." The moment I said it, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then went out completely. "Anna," gasped. I grabbed the candle off the mantel and struck a match, the flame throwing soft orange shadows across the room. "Old wiring," I said, trying to sound calm. But deep down, I knew better, because I'd seen headlights moving slow across the backfield just last week. Too slow for passing traffic, and I'd heard the phone click when I answered it, like someone was listening. Now, honey, I ain't one for ghost stories or paranoia, but sometimes the devil don't wear horns. Just a good suit and a smile. Anna looked scared now, her voice barely a whisper. "Should we call the police?" I shook my head. "And tell 'em what?" "That a stranger who knows our safe code showed up, and my dead husband's ghost is talking through a cassette. They'd haul us both to county psych." She gave a weak laugh, but it didn't last. "So what do? We stay calm," I said, setting the candle down between us. "And we finish what he started." We spent the next hour going through those letters, Henry's handwriting spilling out pieces of a life I thought I'd known. He'd been investigating Duval's dealings for months, trying to expose how he was stealing from families whose farms were foreclosed. He'd even taken photos. Proof, he said. But the last letter ended like the tape did. Mid-sentence. If something happens to me, the pictures are hidden, and that was it. No ending. Anna looked up. Hidden where? Before I could answer, we both heard it. A faint creak from the front porch. We froze. Another creak, and then a shadow passed across the frosted glass of the front door. Anna's eyes met mine. Did you lock it? I swallowed hard. I thought I did. The candle flickered, the flame bowing low like it was afraid to. And then that same knock came again. 3 times. Slow, certain, just like the first time she'd arrived. Only this time, Anna was already inside. The sound of that knock near stopped my old heart. 3 slow raps. Same rhythm, same weight. Like deja vu come to life. But sweetheart, Anna was sitting right beside me. I turned my head, meeting her eyes across the candlelight. She looked pale. Her lips parted, just enough to whisper, Who is that? I don't know, I said, though part of me did. Part of me always knew this night would come full circle. The rain outside hadn't let up. It came down in sheets, thunder rolling like God-dragging furniture across heaven. I stood up slow, my knees popping like gunfire, and motioned for Anna to stay put. Don't move, darling, and no matter what happens, you don't open your mouth till I say so. I made my way through the hallway, candle in hand. The shadows stretched long across the floor, crawling up the walls, like hands reaching. The knocking came again, slower this time, more deliberate. When I reached the door, I called out, Who's there? No answer, just the rain. I gripped the handle. My reflection shimmered faintly in the glass. Old, tired, but stubborn as ever. Then a voice came through, low and familiar. Mrs. Whitaker, it's Sheriff Duncan. You all right in there? Lord have mercy. The sheriff, the same man who'd told me 20 years ago that Henry's death was an accident. I cracked the door open just enough to see him stand in there in his slick brown raincoat, hat brim dripping, flashlight in hand. Evening, Sheriff, I said, carefully. You're out late. He gave a tight smile. We got reports of lights flickering over here. Power lines down all over the county. Thought I'd check in, make sure you're safe. I glanced back down the hall. Anna was still sitting in the study, hidden by shadow. Appreciate it, I said. We're fine. But he didn't move. He tilted his head, flashlight beam, glancing past my shoulder. Mind if I step in for a minute, just to be sure? My gut twisted. Every instinct screamed no. But that old southern politeness came rushing back like muscle memory. Course, I said. Come on in. He stepped over the threshold, stomping his boots on the mat. The air felt heavier the moment he crossed inside. Like the house itself didn't want him here. Quiet night, he asked. Not so quiet, I said softly. Storm's got the walls talking. He chuckled, that same dry little laugh I remembered from years back. You always did say this house had a voice of its own. He wandered toward the parlor, his eyes taking in everything. The quilt on the sofa, the photographs, the open study door at the end of the hall. Expecting company? He asked, his tone casual, but not really asking. My hand tightened on the candle holder. Just memories, I said. He stopped at the doorway to the study. That's when Anna stepped out of the shadows. The look on his face changed. Not surprise, recognition. Well, I'll be damned, he murmured. You look just like him. Anna froze. Like who? He smiled faintly. Your daddy. I felt my blood run cold. Anna looked at me. eyes wide. He knows. I nodded slowly. Seems everyone knows something round here but me. The sheriff turned toward me. Ruth, you didn't tell me Henry's girl came to visit. That's 'cause I didn't know she existed until tonight, I said sharply. He took a step closer, the floor creaking. Well, that changes a few things, doesn't it? Now, honey, I've known a liar long enough to smell one. And Sheriff Duncan's smile had that same slick feel as oil on water. What things? I asked. He hesitated just long enough to make my stomach knot. Let's just say the county's been looking for that box your husband left behind. Mr. Duval's estate has certain interests in what Henry took from him. Anna stiffened. So that's what this is about. You're working for Duval. He tilted his head, his voice calm. Let's not use words like workin', Missy. I'm helping the family get back what's theirs. Funny, I said, that you didn't mention that when you called his death an accident. He looked me dead in the eye. Because I was trying to protect you, Ruth. You think I wanted to drag an old widow into something she couldn't fix? My voice cracked. You lied to me, he sighed. I kept you safe. Now, sweetheart, there's a kind of quiet that ain't peaceful. It's the kind that settles right before the storm hits. That's the silence that filled the room just then. Anna's jaw was tight, her fists balled. You're not taking anything, she said. Sheriff Duncan gave a dry little chuckle. I think you'll find I already am. He nodded toward the safe. That's the one, ain't it? He started walking toward it, but I stepped in front of him, my candle trembling in my hand. You take one more step, and I swear, he raised a hand, mocking calm. Easy now. Nobody needs to get hurt, but Anna moved faster than I thought she could. She grabbed the old poker from beside the fireplace and swung it like she meant it. It hit his arm, knocking his flashlight to the floor. The beam spun wild across the walls, catching flashes of fear, fury, and dust. He cursed, grabbing her wrist. But I shouted, "Let her go!" And without thinking, I did something I hadn't done in 40 years. I fired the pistol Henry left me. The gun went off like thunder, trapped indoors. The sound was deafening. The sheriff stumbled back, hand clutching his shoulder, blood already seeping through his coat. He stared at me, shock writ clear across his face. You just shot a lawman. I stood firm. No, sweetheart, I shot a liar. He stumbled toward the door, muttering curses, his boots leaving dark prints on my rug. You don't know what you've done, Ruth. They'll come for you both now. Then he was gone, disappearing into the storm. Anna dropped the poker, breathing hard. Lord, oh Lord, what do we do? I set the pistol down on the table, my hands shaken. We finish this, darling. That's what we do. The candle flickered again, its flames straining against the dark. Somewhere outside, an engine roared to life, then faded down the road. But I knew in my bones this wasn't over. Because before he left, the sheriff had said, they'll come for you both, not him. And I had a feeling the real monster behind Henry's death was still out there, waiting for the storm to pass. Before knocking one last time, now, my dear, if you've stayed with me this far, bless your heart, don't go anywhere, 'cause the truth's about to rise from the ashes in part 3, and it'll change everything you thought you knew about who to trust. And before I forget, tell me, sugar, have you ever had someone you loved keep a secret that changed your whole world? I'd love to hear your story too, down in the comments. You know, sweetheart, sometimes a photograph speaks louder than a lifetime of words. That night, when Anna pulled that old photo out from Henry's desk drawer, the one hidden beneath, those brittle envelopes and dust, I swear the air changed in that room. The air got thick, like the house itself was holding its breath. It was a picture of Henry standing beside a woman I'd never seen before. Pretty thing too, maybe late 20s, blonde hair tucked under a summer hat, and that same soft smile that makes you question if it's kindness or trouble behind it. Henry's arm was around her waist. Gentle, but not casual. Lord, I've known my husband's ways. He was never one for touching strangers like that. I sat there on the edge of his old study chair, staring at that photo until the lamplight flickered. The silence between me and Anna felt like the moment before a storm. Quiet, but charged with something dangerous. Anna whispered, "Grandma, who is she?" I couldn't even answer, because, deep down, I knew. I'd seen that face before, not in the photograph, but at my front door just 3 days earlier. That same woman, older, worn down by time, but those eyes, oh honey, those eyes don't lie. She was the woman who came to my door, and somehow she knew the code to our family safe. I felt my stomach turn cold, like I'd swallowed ice. Anna saw the color drain from my face and reached for my hand. "Grandma Ruth, you're scaring me." I took a long, trembling breath. "Darling, I think that woman, she wasn't just here for charity or stories. She was here for something of Henry's." That night I couldn't sleep. The rain came hard, tapping against the window like fingers drumming to an old memory. I sat by the fireplace with Henry's pocket watch in my hand, the one that hadn't ticked since the day he died. I whispered to the empty room, "Henry, what did you do? I ain't one to talk to ghosts, my dear. But grief and loneliness make you believe in strange things. Sometimes the silence of an old house can sound a lot like someone answering back." Around midnight, I heard the floorboard creak upstairs. Now, this house has plenty of noises. Lord knows, the wood groans like an old man when the temperature drops. But this sound was different. It was deliberate, slow, careful. I reached for my cane and made my way to the hallway. The air smelled faintly of rain and something else, something metallic. When I reached the top of the stairs, the study door was open, and inside, the lamp was on. I stepped in. The photo was gone. Anna had gone home hours ago. There was no one else here. And yet, the lamp was on. The window cracked open, the curtain swaying like a ghost dress. I felt a tremor in my chest. My old heart's been through a lot, sweetheart. But that moment, it nearly stopped beating. I called out, "Who's there?" No answer. Just the sound of the wind whispering through the trees. I went to the safe. The dial was untouched, or so it seemed. But I knew the difference between untouched and tampered with. And when I leaned in closer, I saw it, a tiny smudge of dirt on the brass handle. Someone had been here. The next morning, I called Anna. She came rushing over, still in her college hoodie, hair a mess. "Grandma, what happened?" I showed her the empty space where the photo had been. She came back. Anna frowned. "You mean the woman from before?" I nodded, but my voice trembled. "She didn't just come back for a visit, sweetheart. She came to take back her past." Anna sat beside me, quiet for a moment. "Grandma, you're starting to scare me." I chuckled weakly. "Oh, honey, I'm scaring myself." We decided to open the safe that afternoon, something I hadn't done in over a decade. The code was a family secret, one that Henry, me, and the Lord himself knew. Or so I thought. I turned the dial. Right, left, right. The rhythm, like muscle memory. When it clicked open, the smell of time hit us. Old paper, a trace of cigar smoke, and the faint perfume of cedar wood. Inside were stacks of letters, Henry's old medals, a faded wedding photo, and one small velvet pouch. Anna lifted the pouch and opened it. Inside was a ring, not mine. It wasn't the simple gold band Henry'd given me under the magnolia tree 60 years ago. No, this was something else. A diamond ring, square cut, surrounded by little sapphires. The kind of ring that didn't belong in a dusty old safe, but on someone's trembling hand during a proposal. Anna looked at me, her eyes wide. "Grandma, whose ring is this?" My throat went dry. I whispered, "It ain't mine, sweetheart." She stared. "Then whose?" I closed the safe slowly, almost afraid that speaking the truth would make the house collapse. I think that woman, she came to reclaim what was hers. That afternoon, I brewed us some tea. Lord knows I needed something to steady these old hands. The kettle whistled softly, and as I poured the steaming water, my reflection trembled in the teapot's silver. I saw a woman tired from carrying too many secrets. Anna sat quiet at the table, holding that velvet pouch like it might burst into flames. Finally, she asked, "Grandma, do you think Grandpa was, in love with her?" I smiled sadly. "Love's a funny thing, darling. It don't always wear the right face." She frowned. "You mean he cheated?" I shook my head. "No, but sometimes love don't need to be physical to be a betrayal." I told her about the summer of 1964, when Henry started working late nights at the law firm, and I'd stay up watching that porch light until I fell asleep in my chair. There was a girl in town, Evelyn Grace. Beautiful, smart, the kind of woman men noticed and women envied. She used to volunteer at the church bazaar, always bringing Henry his favorite peach pie. I never thought much of it. Lord, you don't question every kindness. But now I see it clearer than ever. Maybe Henry and Evelyn had something that wasn't meant to be. Maybe he ended it when he realized what it would cost. And maybe that woman at my door, older, fragile, haunted, was Evelyn herself, or someone she left behind. That night, I sat at the piano. My fingers ain't what they used to be, but the keys still remember. I played the song Henry used to hum when he was shaving, Moon River. Halfway through, I stopped, because right there, tucked under the music sheets, was the missing photograph, folded neat, like someone wanted me to find it again. But this time, there was a note taped to the back. A small yellowed piece of paper that said only, "You promised him you'd keep it safe." I stared at it till the tears blurred my vision. I whispered to the empty air, "What did I promise, Henry? My dear, before I continue, if this story has touched your heart even a little, do subscribe and stay with me through the end. There's something about secrets that change the way you see love. And I ain't done telling you what I found next. You know, darling, grief don't come all at once. It creeps, like ivy, on the side of an old house. Quiet, patient, strangling the wood till it forgets it was ever new. And that night, when I found that note taped to the back of the photograph, I realized Henry's secrets were growing wild in this house, and I was the last one left to prune them. I sat there, holding that picture like a confession. You promised him you'd keep it safe. Safe. That word. It echoed in my head like a sermon. Safe. Like the code she knew. Safe. Like the vault that shouldn't have been opened. Safe. Like the life I thought I understood. But tell me, sweetheart, what happens when the promise you made starts to destroy you? The next morning, I went out to the old porch. The air was heavy with that post-rain sweetness, and the fields behind the house were glistening like glass. The world looked clean, but my mind was a mess. I held the photograph to the light, and for the first time, I noticed something small but strange. Behind Henry and the woman, there was a signpost. It read, Harper Creek, 1964. Lord, have mercy. Harper Creek was the lake 2 towns over, the one Henry told me he never visited. But I remember that summer clear as day. He came home once with mud on his boots and the smell of wet pine on his coat. Said he'd been inspecting some property for a client. Maybe that was a lie. Maybe Harper Creek was where the truth lived all along. I asked Anna to drive me there. She didn't want to. Said it was too much for you, Grandma. But you know how stubborn an old woman gets when the ghosts start whispering. So she sighed and agreed. We drove down that long winding road. Trees bending, like they were born to memory. The world looked the same, yet older somehow, like it. Remembered every sin we'd buried. And when we reached Harper Creek, my heart near stopped. There it was, a cabin. Half rotten, half standing, windows boarded, roof caved in, but the porch swing still moving just a little, like someone had left it mid-conversation. Anna parked the car. Grandma, you sure about this? I nodded. Sweetheart, I've been running from this place for 60 years. I reckon it's time to face it. Inside it smelled like mildew and time. Dust floated through the light like ghosts dancing in slow motion. And on the mantel above the fireplace, there was something that took the breath right out of me. A tin photo frame, face down. I picked it up. It was Henry again, younger, smiling, and next to him, that same woman, Evelyn Grace. They looked happy, too happy. But it wasn't the photo that broke me. It was the inscription scratched into the wood underneath. For Ruth, to keep him safe. My knees gave out. I sat right there on that creaky floor, holding that frame, trying to understand how my name ended up written on a picture I was never meant to see. Anna knelt beside me. Grandma, what does that mean? I whispered. It means he lied. To both of us, darling. But for a reason neither of us understands yet. We searched the cabin. In one of the drawers, we found an old journal. The first page said, E.g., Harper Creek, summer, 1964. The handwriting was elegant, old-fashioned, written with care. Evelyn's voice came alive through those pages. Her loneliness, her guilt, her love, and somewhere around the middle, I read words that made my blood run cold. Henry says he can't choose. He loves her too much to leave her, but he loves me too much to stay away. He made me promise to protect the box if anything happens to him. Says it holds the truth of everything. The box, not the safe, a box. I looked around that cabin like a woman possessed, and then I saw it, beneath the floorboards, near the fireplace. A square cutout, barely visible under layers of dust. Anna helped me pry it open. Inside was a small rusted metal box. When I lifted it, something inside rattled. A sound like fate. The lock was broken, so it opened easy. Inside were a few folded letters, tied with twine, a golden locket, and one old cassette tape labeled, in Henry's handwriting, for Ruth, if she ever finds this. I swear to you, my hands shook so bad I almost dropped it. Anna whispered, "Oh my God, Grandma." I smiled weakly. No, darling, not God, just Henry. Back home that night, I dug out my old cassette player. The one Henry used to record family songs on back in the 80s. It barely worked, but it turned on with a little persuasion. I pressed play. For a moment, all I heard was static. Then, Henry's voice. "Ruth, if you're hearing this, it means I failed. I tried to protect you from this mess, but you deserve the truth. The woman who came into our lives, Evelyn, she wasn't just a friend. She was my client, and she was in trouble. Someone was after her for the money her husband stole. I kept her safe, but I kept her secret too. The safe in our house. It ain't just for my medals or papers. It holds the only proof that could've saved her. And now, I'm scared that proof might destroy you. The tape crackled. My heart felt like it was splitting in two. Henry continued. I told her the code because I knew one day she'd need it. I told her if she ever came back, it meant the danger wasn't gone. If she's at your door, Ruth, please for God's sake help her. She never meant to hurt you. I pressed pause. Couldn't breathe. All this time I'd painted her as a thief, a liar, but maybe she was the one person trying to keep my family safe. Anna sat next to me, silent. Then she whispered, so she didn't come to steal. She came to protect. I nodded slowly. Seems I was protecting the wrong thing all these years, sweetheart. I kept his secret, but I never kept his promise. We both sat there in that dim room, the sound of rain soft against the window pane. I realized then that maybe the real betrayal wasn't between Henry and Evelyn. It was between me and forgiveness, because I'd built a life around not knowing. And now that I did, I couldn't hate her. Not anymore. That night, I took the locket from the box and opened it. Inside was a small photograph of Evelyn, and tucked behind it, a tiny note in Henry's handwriting. She saved my life once. Now she's saving yours. I closed it gently, whispered into the quiet, Henry, I reckon I understand now. Took me a lifetime, but I do. My dear, before I tell you what happened when she came back one last time, take a moment to breathe with me. If you've ever kept a secret to protect someone you love, you know how heavy that silence can get. And if this story has touched your heart even a little, do subscribe, darling. Stay with me through the end, because the final truth is coming, and it ain't what you expect. You ever notice, sweetheart, how a storm feels different once you understand it? When you're a child, thunder feels like anger. When you're grown, it feels like truth, finally speaking. That night, after I listened to Henry's voice on that old cassette, the storm outside didn't scare me anymore. It was like the house itself was breathing again, creaking, moaning, remembering what it was built to protect. And maybe, so was I. I sat in my rocker by the window till dawn, the cassette player still humming soft static. The rain had stopped, but the air smelled of earth and secrets. For the first time in years, I didn't feel angry, just tired. Tired of running from ghosts that only wanted to tell me their side. Anna came downstairs around 7, sleepy-eyed and quiet. She looked at me, the locket still hanging around my neck, and said softly, "You didn't sleep, did you?" I smiled. "No, darling, but I think I finally woke up." Around mid-morning, the doorbell rang. The sound sliced through the quiet, like a blade through silk. Anna froze. "Grandma, you think it's her?" I took a deep breath. "No, sweetheart, I know it is." When I opened that door, I swear time folded in on itself. There she stood. The woman from the photo, the one from the tape, the one who knew my husband's secrets better than I did. Older now, frail as a candle flame in the wind. But those eyes, Lord, those eyes hadn't changed. They were the color of regret. Her voice cracked when she spoke. "Ruth, just my name." That's all it took for 60 years of silence to collapse. Around me, I didn't speak right away. My throat felt like sandpaper. Finally, I whispered, "You've got a lot of nerve coming back here." She nodded, eyes glistening. "I know, but I didn't come for forgiveness. I came for closure." I let her in. Anna hovered nearby, confused but respectful, like someone who'd stumbled into a memory that wasn't hers. The woman, Evelyn Grace, though I hadn't said her name aloud in decades, walked slowly to the fireplace. She looked around the room like it was holy ground. Her fingers brushing the furniture, the mantel, the air itself. Then she turned to me and said, "He told me you'd understand one day." I prayed he was right. I sat across from her. "You lied to me, Evelyn. You came to my door like a stranger, knowing things no stranger should." She looked down at her hands, thin, trembling, spotted with time. "I didn't lie, Ruth. I just couldn't tell you everything yet. I didn't want to reopen wounds that were never meant to bleed again." I shook my head, the words heavy. "You took the photograph. You opened my safe." She smiled sadly. "I didn't take it. I moved it. You weren't ready to see it then. Not until you heard his voice." My heart clenched. "You left the note." "I did." Her eyes softened. "You were always the strong one, Ruth. He admired that. That's why he trusted you more than anyone. Even me." We sat there for a while. Two old women in a room full of ghosts. Sometimes silence can say more than a lifetime of talking. Then she reached into her purse, slow, careful, and pulled out a small envelope, yellowed with an age. She handed it to me. "This was Henry's last letter. He wanted you to have it, but he asked me to deliver it, only when I knew you were ready to read it." My hands shook as I opened it. Henry's handwriting, firm, slanted, achingly familiar, stared back at me. "My dearest Ruth, if this letter finds you, it means Evelyn did her part. She kept her promise, and I pray you'll keep yours. I never betrayed you. I loved you every day, every breath, but I couldn't let an innocent woman die because of my silence. The truth I hid wasn't for shame, but for mercy. If she's at your door now, it means she's still in danger. The papers in the safe, they're proof that could clear her. Husband's name. Please help her one last time. That's all I ask of you. Yours forever, Henry." I don't remember crying, just feeling the tears run down like they'd been waiting years to fall. When I looked up, Evelyn was crying too. She whispered, "He saved me, Ruth. He saved my life. But I never meant to take anything from you." I nodded slowly. "You didn't. You just took the part of him I couldn't reach." Anna sat beside me, eyes wide, barely breathing. She whispered, "Grandma, she's not the villain, is she?" I smiled through tears. "No, sweetheart. She's the last piece of the story." Evelyn looked toward the window, her gaze far away. "There's one more thing you should know. The man who came after me, he's gone now. But before he died, he asked for forgiveness too. He said Henry never stopped fighting for the truth. Even after he knew it would cost him everything." Held her hand. It was cold, frail, but still had that quiet strength that comes from surviving too much. We sat there till the afternoon light turned gold, and the old house, for the first time in decades, felt peaceful. Then she stood. "I should go," she said softly. "The story's yours now, Ruth. You get to decide how it ends." As she stepped off the porch, I called out, "Evelyn?" She turned, her silhouette framed by the dying light. I said, "You kept him safe, and for that, I forgive you." She smiled, tears on her cheeks. "No, Ruth. You kept him safe. You always did." Then she walked away, slow, steady, till she disappeared beyond the magnolia trees. That night, I lit a candle by the safe and left the locket beside it, not as a symbol of betrayal, but of truth, finally set free. For 60 years, I'd carried the weight of what I didn't know. Now I carried peace instead. My dear, before I tell you what happened the next morning, when the house gave me one last sign that Henry was still watching over me, let me ask you something. Have you ever forgiven someone without hearing, "I'm sorry"? Tell me in the comments, sweetheart. I'd love to know your story too. And if this one's touched your heart, stay with me, darling. The ending. It's the kind that lingers long after the fire goes out. You know, darling, when a soul makes peace, the whole house can feel it. That night after Evelyn left, the silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt full, like the air itself was humming with something gentle, something thankful. I sat up late in my rocker, watching the candle flicker beside the old safe. The flame bent this way and that, almost dancing, like it had a memory of its own. And in that quiet glow, I swear I could feel Henry's presence, sitting right there with me. The same way he used to, on those long summer nights, when the world outside was soft and forgiving. Sometimes, sweetheart, love don't die, it just learns to whisper. Sometime past midnight, the grandfather clock in the hall chimed once. Just once, then stopped. Now that clock hadn't worked in 20 years. Not since the day of Henry's funeral. Anna and I tried fixing it once, but the gears were rusted, the pendulum frozen in time. And yet that night, it spoke, a single chime, clear as crystal, echoing through the walls. I didn't move right away, just sat there, heart thumping like a drum. Then I whispered, "Henry, is that you, old fool?" The candle's flame flared, sudden and bright, then settled again, and for a moment I could smell him, that faint mix of tobacco and cedar he carried with him everywhere. It wrapped around me like a memory come to life. I chuckled softly, wiping a tear. Well, if that's your way of saying goodbye, it's about time. The next morning, the world was different, golden. The rain had washed everything clean. The windows clear, the porch glistening. Even the magnolia blossoms seemed brighter. Anna was already up, making breakfast, humming some tune she must have picked up from the radio. She turned when I walked in. "Morning, Grandma. You look peaceful." I smiled. Guess I finally got a good night's rest. But deep down, I knew it wasn't rest. It was release. After breakfast, I told Anna I wanted to visit Henry's grave. We drove down to Willow Bend Cemetery, where the wind always smells like lilacs and old secrets. I brought the locket with me. It felt warm in my hand, like it had been holding on to the last bit of his love all this time. When we reached the headstone, I knelt down as best I could and laid the locket right there beside his name. And I said, "You did good, Henry. You kept your promise. And now I've kept mine." The wind picked up just then. Soft at first, then stronger. Enough to lift the edge of my shawl and carry a few magnolia petals across the stone. And I'll be damned if one of them didn't land right on that locket, staying there like it knew where it belonged. Anna whispered, "Grandma, did you see that?" I smiled through my tears. "Oh, honey, that's just Henry saying thank you." That afternoon, when we came home, I found a small envelope slid under the door. No name, no address. Inside was a photograph, the same one from before, Henry and Evelyn by the lake. But this time, there was a message written on the back, in fresh ink. For Ruth, because love never meant to hide. My breath caught. The handwriting wasn't Henry's or Evelyn's. It was newer, gentler. Anna looked at me. Who would have sent this? I just smiled. Someone who wanted us to remember love the right way. Maybe it was Evelyn, sending her final goodbye. Maybe it was just the house giving me one last mystery to hold on to. Either way, I didn't need answers anymore. Sometimes peace don't come from knowing everything. It comes from forgiving enough. That evening, I sat on the porch while the sun dipped low, painting the sky that honey-colored gold you only see once you've lived long enough to appreciate it. The wind carried the sound of chimes, soft, far off. And I whispered to the air, "You can rest now, Henry. We're all right." And for just a second, I swear I heard his voice, low, steady, warm as ever. Took you long enough, darlin'. I smiled. Well, you always did like taking the long way round. Then I closed my eyes and let the breeze carry the rest. My dear, before I go on, if you've ever lost someone and still felt them lingering in the corners of your heart, tell me, sweetheart, what do you think that means? Do you believe love stays, even after the body goes? Leave me your thoughts in the comments, my dear. I read every one, and it warms this old heart to know I ain't the only soul still talking to ghosts. And if this story's held your hand even a little, do subscribe. We've still got one final chapter to walk through. One that ain't about loss anymore, but about what stays behind when forgiveness finally takes root. You ever notice, sweetheart, how life don't ever really end cleanly? Even after the storms pass, there's always a little thunder still rumbling somewhere far off. Like the world's just making sure you remember what it taught you. It had been 3 weeks since Evelyn left. Anna had gone back to her little apartment in the city, and the house had fallen quiet again. Too quiet, maybe. But it wasn't the kind of quiet that used to haunt me. The kind that pressed against your chest like a weight. No, this quiet was different. This one felt earned. I spent my morning sitting on the porch, rocking slow with a cup of coffee, watching the fog lift off the fields, like ghosts finding their way home. And every so often, I'd glance toward the parlor, toward that old safe sitting behind Henry's oak desk, the same one that had kept our family secrets for near half a century, the same one that woman, Evelyn, had known the code to. Still didn't understand how. Maybe she guessed. Maybe Henry told her long ago. Or maybe some things in this world just have their own way of coming full circle. No matter how tight you think you've sealed them shut, a few days later, I decided to clean the study. Proper cleaning, not just dusting around the edges like I'd been doing for years. I pulled every book from the shelves, wiped down each frame, opened drawers I hadn't touched since Henry passed. And then, as I reached behind a stack of old ledgers, my hand brushed against something rough. A small wooden panel. Loose, Lord, have mercy. I didn't even remember it being there. I tugged gently, and sure enough, the panel came free with a soft click. Behind it, tucked deep in the shadows, was a thin envelope sealed with wax. The kind Henry used back when he still wrote me love letters every Sunday. The wax was marked with his initials, H.W. My breath caught in my throat. Henry? I whispered. The paper was yellowed, the edges brittle, but the moment I touched it, I knew this was meant for me, and only me. I took it to the window where the light fell soft and gold across the desk, and I opened it slow, careful as if time itself might crack if I rushed it. Inside, there was a single page, written in Henry's strong, steady hand. My dearest Ruth, if you found this, it means the truth has already reached you, one way or another. I never meant for it to. Not because I was ashamed, but because I didn't want my last years with you colored by my mistakes. Evelyn was never my lover, Ruth. She was our son's fiancée. I froze. My heart dropped clean out of me. His name was Daniel, the boy you never knew we had. I had to sit down right then, 'cause the world started spinning. I could barely breathe. Daniel, a son. My hands trembled as I read on. He was born in 1947, when I was stationed in Georgia for work. I'd been married to you just a year, and you were back home here in Willow Creek with your mama, sick as she was. I never told you, because Daniel wasn't ours the way you'd think. He was born before you, and I even met. I made mistakes, Ruth. Foolish, painful mistakes. But I swore I'd make it right. When Daniel passed in that car accident, Evelyn came to me, broken, lost. I gave her the code to the safe because it held his mother's ring, the only thing left of his life that wasn't taken by the fire. That's all she ever wanted. I told her she could come back if she ever needed help, that I'd look after her like she was family, because she was in a way. I never broke my vow to you, Ruth. Not once. But I couldn't tell you because I didn't want your heart burdened by a ghost that wasn't ours to carry. If she ever came for the code, no, it was never betrayal. Only unfinished love I couldn't mend in time. By the time I finished reading, my hands were shaking so hard, the page near slipped from my grip. Tears blurred the ink, till I could hardly see the words anymore. All those years I'd hated him, doubted him, cursed his silence, and he'd been protecting me from a pain he thought I couldn't bear. I don't remember how long I sat there, darling, maybe an hour, maybe two, but somewhere in that stillness, the anger in me finally broke, like ice melting in spring. I whispered, "Oh, Henry, you stubborn fool, you should have just told me." And for the first time in years, I laughed through my tears, a small, cracked, human sound, because the truth didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It healed. It mended places I didn't even realize were still bleeding. That evening, I walked down to the lake, the same lake from the photograph. The air was calm, the water mirror still. I took that letter with me and read it again, out loud this time, letting the words drift over the ripples like a prayer. Then I folded it gently and set it afloat. It bobbed there a moment, just longs, enough for the ink to blur and the paper to curl, then sank beneath the surface, carried away into the quiet deep. And in that instant, I swear I heard the faintest whisper behind me, not from this world, no, but from somewhere softer. Thank you, Ruth. It wasn't scary, darling. It was peace, like the final note of a song that's been waiting years to end. My dear, before I go on, if this part of my story has touched your heart even a little, if you've ever found forgiveness in the strangest of places, do stay with me for the last chapter. It's where love finally finds its way home. And tell me, sweetheart, have you ever forgiven someone after they were gone? I'd love to hear your story too. The next morning came quiet, wrapped in that kind of sunlight that feels like forgiveness. The whole house smelled like coffee and magnolias. Anna must have opened the kitchen windows before leaving for work. I moved slow, my old bones still humming from yesterday's truth. The letter from Henry rested on my nightstand, folded, neat and pressed beneath my glasses, like an old friend keeping me company through the night. I didn't cry anymore, didn't have to. Sometimes the soul just exhales, and that's enough. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat at Henry's desk again. The wood was smooth and warm beneath my fingertips, worn where his hands used to rest. A soft breeze rolled through the window, making the curtains dance. And for a heartbeat, I could almost see him sitting there, shoulders broad, eyes steady, that familiar half smile playing at the corner of his mouth. "Morning, old fool," I whispered, and the breeze answered with a whisper of its own. That's when I decided to write him back. I pulled out one of his old stationery sheets, the kind he used to order with his initials printed at the top, and began to write. "My dearest Henry, you were right. The truth did find me, and it didn't break me. It healed me. I used to think love was about holding tight, keeping promises, keeping people, keeping pain out. But I see now it's about letting go the right way. You carried a weight for me all those years, protecting me from what you thought was hurt. Maybe it was once, but now it's just another part of the story we shared. One I'm finally ready to forgive. Evelyn came, Henry. She found what she was looking for, and she left me something too. The truth. You'd be proud of her." She's still got that quiet strength you used to admire. She's still carrying your kindness with her, in her own way. I'll tell you what I told the Lord last night. I forgive you, Henry, and I thank you for the years, for the lessons, for the laughter that still echoes in these halls. I hope wherever you are, the lake's still calm, the moon's still bright, and the clock finally runs right. You're Ruth. When I finished, I folded the letter and slipped it into the safe, right where his had been. Then I closed the door, turned the dial slow, and listened to the click echo through the room. Not as an ending, but as a promise kept. Outside, the wind rustled the trees, making the chimes sing by the porch, and for a moment, I could swear I heard him humming along. The rest of that day, I spent in the garden. The roses had started to bloom again, deep red, heavy with scent. The way they did this summer, Henry built that white picket fence. Every petal felt like a memory, every gust of wind like a sigh from the past, saying, "It's all right now." When the sun began to set, I made my way back to the porch with my shawl wrapped around me. The sky was turning the color of old honey, and a few fireflies had already started flickering in the distance. I sat down in my rocker and looked out over the fields. "You were right, Henry," I said softly. "Some love just learns to whisper," and as if the whole world agreed, the wind stilled, gentle, final, peaceful. My dear, if you're still here with me, bless your heart. You've walked through my memories like a friend, and I hope you felt something that stays. Love ain't always clean, sweetheart. It's messy, it's human, it's full of mistakes and grace, and all the little truths we spend a lifetime learning how to live with, but it's real, and that's all that matters in the end. So before you go, tell me, my dear, have you ever forgiven someone who never asked for it? I'd love to know your story. And if this old heart of mine has spoken to yours tonight, do subscribe and stay close. There's always another tale waiting in these walls, another memory that still hums in the dark. Until next time, darling, keep your porch light on and your heart open. This is Grandma Ruth, signing off. If you stayed with me till the end, thank you. Tell me the time and country you're watching from in the comments. It warms my old heart knowing where my stories travel. Good night, sweetheart.